like to discuss this book, which I really hope you'll buy and read. It's at Amazon. Okay. It has 10 stories. The first, I go way back in time, Justice Gone Haywire. And I write something about Queen Catherine Howard, the fifth wife of Henry VIII. Now, almost everybody believes that she was a giddy, reckless little adulteress. There actually is very good reason to believe that she was innocent of the charges, that she had no affair with Thomas Culpeper, and that she was, like her cousin before her, Anne Boleyn, the victim of a frame-up. And I make that case in there. Okay. Then we have Roscoe. Chapter 2 is Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle. And Chapter 3 is the murder of Mary Fagan and lynching of Leo Frank. Now, in both of these cases, both the Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle case, in which he was kind of railroaded, but not quite railroaded because he wasn't convicted, and in the case of the lynching of Leo Frank, people had good reason to be concerned. Hollywood, even way back when it started, way back in the 1920s, often sexually exploited women. Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle did not. So he, in fact, was scapegoated for a very common practice. Now, Mary Fagan was a little factory worker of 13 years old. And the fact is, again, society had reason to be concerned because they were changing from a rural situation to an urban situation. And very often in the urban situation, you had young, impoverished women under the supervision of affluent adult men who very frequently took advantage of their position. Okay, and going back to Arbuckle, the woman that he supposedly raped and murdered was not his victim, but she may have been the victim of sexual exploitation. She had multiple abortions. Okay, and again, in both Hollywood and in the days in which we were changing from a rural to a urban environment, there was a lot of sexual exploitation of the young women who worked in the factories. The Scottsboro Boys were basically victims of racism, of anti-Black racism, and that's why they were railroaded for rapes that never occurred. Now we get into a more ambiguous case in Chapter 5, the murder of Marilyn Shepard and the trials of Dr. Sam Shepard. Okay, even to this day, that case is controversial. But there's also a possibility that there was a kind of prejudice against him because he was rich. You know, you can get prejudice in all directions. And because, this is a mid-20th century and he was an adulterer. Okay, then we go to the Alice Crimmins case, and here again, prejudice rears its head. She kind of she was accused of killing her two small children. And a lot of the publicity centered around her being an attractive woman who kind of fit into a femme fatale stereotype, and her promiscuity. Okay, and in fact, there were people who said, well, even though it wasn't relevant, one woman who was a witness at a courtroom actually said, I don't see how any woman could kill her children, but a woman like that. And there was also a juror in her first trial who said a tramp like that is capable of anything. Okay. Then I talk about Jean Harris, the 1980 case of Jean Harris, and I make the case for her innocence. And that was a very sensational case. She was the headmistress of an institution, of a high school, exclusive high school, and her boyfriend, Dr. Thomas Tarnower, whom she did kill, was the author of a best-selling diet book. Now, she said that it was an accident, and I make a case that there was an accident. You can read it there. Then we have Jonathan Pollard, who was guilty. He spied for Israel, but he's in Justice Gone Haywire because he got an out-of-whack sentence for spying for an ally. Nobody else gets a harsh sentence for spying for an ally, and this guy spent over 2 decades in jail. Then we have Chapter 9, the schizophrenic falsely convicted as the bike path rapist. That's kind of self-explanatory. And then we have Chapter 10, Gary Dotson, Kathleen Kroll, and the rape that never was, which was a young lady who was a teenager, made up the story that she